Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. Mud Flood was Armageddon. Do not let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest, non violent way. I have a feeling something might happen. I want to make this more of a stop and drop talk, look at what's going on. Look at the atomic weapons of China and Japan, try to put things in perspective on a video I saw today from the Chinese perspective, the Japanese perspective of what was going on. And I think I'll be able to tie it in. I'm going to have to share the screen. I did everything else, got the all going on. So now I can share the screen. We're going to have some good old memories today and encourage anybody, Luther, that if they have a topic, because, I'm early, I want to stay on till at least 7 o'clock. I think another shoe is going to drop. We can check in on, you know, our Roman Catholic hero of this drama cycle, Candace Owens, went and saw the charismatic Roman Catholic leaning Shabbat Shalom, Daddy's home, and all of that. So anything you guys see in the news and you want to touch on, do it. That's kind of what I got going here. I didn't I didn't have the screenshot. Now I do. There it is. A few pictures. Is this a Candace Owen? Oh, I can feel it. Oh, this guy. That I thought he did pretty good handling it. That's the last picture. Oh, I was looking for some. There's the thumbnail I went with. That is San Francisco on the other side of the bay while they were doing that miraculous build of San Francisco, the Golden Gate City. They had to build around this old star fort because they built this too. That same year, they figured, here comes all those ships. We're going to need this star fort as a coastal defense. And then much later, they said, before they knew about people could get the bends if they stayed underwater without oxygen, they built those things 110 feet deep. They call it impossible. That's a star fort, baby. I don't know what they got. How far does it go back? Was that it? That's it. As I stumble back to the one other thing, what do you got with you? What is that Simpsons prediction? I am going to look that up right now. Simpsons prediction, because Zach Mack would not be bringing it up twice. I don't know. Is that what you called it? New Year's are insane, man. Oh, I get it. It's that TV show. You know what? I don't think I've ever seen a full episode of The Simpsons. I know all their names and I know they have weird neighbors. How's this from a line from it? Do not feed peanuts to my God. See, I know about it. Just my wife didn't want my children to watch it. So here's some weird stuff.
Plans you have for 2025 because The Simpsons has already predicted the future. Okay, I know some of you are going to disapprove of this, but I decided to ask ChatGPT which
Man, oh man. I disapprove. However, I'm going to look anyway.
achieve this goal. Some would argue it's not even that impressive. However, back in 2000, before Trump was even president, The Simpsons animated this iconic sequence with Trump waving to his supporters on an escalator.
I remember that one. It wasn't Melania on there. Let's look at a couple of more.
15th of November, as you know, Trump announced that he would be rerunning for president again in 2024. Okay, we might need the Trump surname later for when I show you the ChatGPT's predictions for 2025. But first, allow me to show you the other biggest coincidences between The Simpsons and real life. Have you ever heard of the God particle? Admittedly, I don't really like the title, but in an episode in 1998, Homer came up with the mathematical equation for the God particle on a blackboard. This is 14 years before physicists had even discovered it. Am I the only one?
Wow. Okay, we know these, but when you get hit upside the head, I mean, because we've been Charlie Kirk, Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump upside the head for a while now, and we forget that, man, they covered up the flat Earth.
Notice at the bottom it says a division of Walt Disney and Co. So you tell me, how did they know that 21 years later this would really happen? And
I'm going to go out on a limb here. This guy's not from the United States.
Simpsons 2025 predictions according to ChatGPT. Well, I can't wait for your opinion on this, but some of you I know still need convincing that this isn't anything more than just one big coincidence. And guys, I'll be this would later happen in 2018. And although it is a little bit more difficult to explain, I do believe some of these predictions are actually just copied.
I remember that one where they did the weird opening of the Olympics. That was recently.
Difficult to explain. I do believe some of these predictions are actually just copied by the mainstream media to gain more publicity and thus gain more viewers. If you need proof of this, take a look at this 2012 Simpsons scene where we see Lady Gaga at the Super Bowl during her halftime performance. Are you trying to tell me that Lady Gaga wasn't aware of this in 2017 when she was
You know what? That's a pretty good point. What else is true? I'm going to jump ahead.
this went on the cross and is recorded in John 19 verses 34 and 37. Number 10, they would cast lots for his garments. This was foretold in
All right, so we're getting into where he's going over some witnessing now. Little reminder here, what we got? What on 2004?
episode Pearly Riders, where Professor Frank invents a device which is able to translate a dog's thoughts into speech. Our fourth prediction comes from a 1996 episode of The Simpsons where Homer recalls an invention that applies makeup in 1 second. So ChatGPT suggested to me that such an invention might be capable of automating makeup in one quick application.
That would probably be the one quick application would be you click that button on that TikTok and makes you look like you're a movie star or something. Yeah, I forgot to click it. Again, maybe Casey should start looking at dissecting soap operas to predict what's coming. Yeah, man. Or those Disney movies. What else have we got? So we got that one out of the way. This is something we needed to hear. Waiting for China to roar. An hour and 20 into it. I finally get to something.
To precisely mimic the sequence of activation, just as you might have predicted or you might have hoped. And it has to be that way. I mean, we didn't make it that way. It has developed that way, and all we have to do is figure it out, and we just hadn't figured it out earlier.
A major misconception is that if
neither
I thought we were going to get into World War II.
first weekend is all been broken up. Nature uses this action to disintegrate complexes which have lost their vitality or have died. That's the explosion. In nature, there's a continual switch from one movement to the other. alternating currency. But if the development is to occur, then the movement of the gross must be predominant. Victor investigated a new motor fuel that can be used in ordinary combustion engines, but without the dangerous waste products. Water as a constructive hyperbolic motion was the ability to bring about the synthesis of hydrocarbons suitable for fuel. Water sprayed into a cylinder and a quantity of natural oxygen is added. A light heat pressure is created by a descending piston is sufficient to transform the highly potent water to gas.
Have a similar heart structure. The ventricular band, as described by Torrent Guasp, is divided into two loops by a fold at its center. The basal or outer loop and the apical loop, which forms the apex of the heart. The septum of the heart is formed by the crossing of the descendant and ascendant segments, which we observed in the dissection. The two apical segments loop in a helical fashion, forming the apex of the heart, which reveals itself to belong to the left ventricle.
I just realized I wasn't holding down the audio, but I was looking for something, and I think we'll look at the Candace Owen thing.
What do you mean you was watching? And then
So thank God for her because we would not have that footage at all of him talking about his sons. And for everyone saying, you know, in the comments, oh, well, he didn't say he was a son. He just said, my son, Mikey McCoy, da 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 da, and Justin, da 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 da. And then he went back to Mikey. And it has been said several times. And yes, they have changed all that stuff on Wikipedia. By the way, like I think we told you guys yesterday, Wikipedia, you can edit now yourself.
Well, you've always been able to. That's one of their things.
If there was anything that I could say, it's that we just need to keep our eyes on God. Like, as soon as you take your eyes,
Let's see if we can see where Candace Owens was bringing it to the dealio. Backstabbers. That's my backup channel. There she is. She's finished streaming. Check this out.
So I guess to be clear, we were just wrong about that. And I will have a lot more to say about Rob McCoy and where I believe he fits into a lot of things. So I'm not letting up on that. Now, one piece of this where I still don't understand it, and the magic bullet. Okay. Now we all recall what happened. I casually say on the show, hey, I saw the footage. There was no blood. And honestly, when I said it, I didn't process how big of a deal that was with the 30-06. Very quickly, what happens is Andrew Colvett whips up this tweet about what happened with the bullet, and he said he wanted to address all the discussion that was being had about the online chatter. I'm obviously paraphrasing here. He says, I apologize. It's going to get graphic, but he spoke with the surgeon. The bullet should have gone through. The surgeon then explained that what he's typically seen on these wounds, and basically this was all a miracle. Charlie saved lives, even in death. And the internet clocked it, this miracle, the healthy bone. His bone was so healthy, and the density was so impressive. Like, this is a quote, by the way. His bone was so healthy. I want to read it. This is allegedly from a surgeon. Quote, his bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. And we were just like,
No, you weren't. You not enough because this was settled by September 12th. Everybody goes like, "Look, you can't do that. You can't just say the bullet changed direction, went down the spine, and disappeared." We knew something was up. That guy jumping off of the roof. This has all been solved, yet they got to play it out so that we can forget about Butler, PA, the other people after that, 9/11. They'll tell you, don't believe your own eyes.
"Eh." That kind of was like the beginning of the WTF, right? I feel like that was kind of the beginning of it. And immediately people in the comments responded to Andrew, and he said, this individual said, this post is so fake as it would violate HIPAA. Like, there's patient privacy. You can't just call up the surgeon. And then Andrew Colbert replies and says, rest assured, I would not have posted without full permission. Now, he said he spoke to the surgeon, and they confirmed that Andrew spoke to the surgeon, but that they did not know that he was going to write that tweet. They did not know that he called up the surgeon. So, like, it very much came across to be like Andrew.
So we know they lie. Let's jump ahead, see what else they're lying about. This is news night, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Really, I think, surprised them and I think surprised me is getting back to this Hamptons retreat. The thing about the Hamptons retreat, and I communicated this with them, that makes me so uncomfortable is how many little lies were told. I think I've been clear about that. Like, Seth Dillon definitively pressed Charlie at this event. Now, whether it was in a hypothetical, which it was in a hypothetical, but he got fired up in the hypothetical of Charlie discussing potentially tweeting something against Bibi Netanyahu, it did lead to this firecracker moment. Again, this is one of those.
Again, that's what it is. It's a firecracker moment. The icons behind Candace are Roman Catholic. The arguments for Judaism in the right way is still there. They don't go with anything about the flat earth, reading the Bible. They added 1,000 years. To them, it's all, this is the circus. I'm going to play a little bit. We'll come back to this. But the guy I wanted you to hear. Oh, I got, yeah, I'm missing some audio. Let me get this thing here out of the way as I check my email. See what kind of link is we're talking here. Some short ones. Let's check this out.
The Simpsons predicted every American would get $2,000 checks in 2025. In one episode, Donald Trump raises a hand and declares,
every American will get $2,000 paid directly from me.
Confetti cannons fire. Dollar bills flutter through the air. At the Simpson house, Homer's eyes widen.
$2,000 bucks? That's like for 1,000 donuts.
Marge frowns.
Homer, that doesn't sound realistic.
The TV shows stacks of checks rolling off a printing press. Trump smiles and signs each one with a golden pen. Banks overflow with people cashing their checks. Lines stretch down the street. Security guards shout for calm as doors burst open. ATMs spit out fresh bills like slot machines. People cheer and shove wads of cash into shopping bags. Store shelves empty overnight. Everyone in Springfield starts spending. Bart buys a dirt bike. Mo turns the bar into a luxury lounge. Mr. Burns cancels payroll and declares,
I pay workers when the president does it for me.
Lisa studies the headlines.
Man. So really that leaves only one question is, how much have you thought about the $2,000 of, like, how you going to use it? Are you going to use it to hit the road? Stay put? Let's look at another one of those linkity doo da. Go.
Simpsons predicted that in 2026, a virus named HMPV could start in the United States. In their story, the infection spread very fast across Springfield. People began to feel sick with sore throats, fevers that didn't go away, heavy coughing that kept them up at night, body pains so bad that even Homer stayed home from work, and strong headaches that made Lisa put her books aside. Dr. Hibbert had to check patients outside in the parking lot because the hospital was already full. Once again, schools were shut down, people had to work from their homes, everyone was required to wear masks again. Still, the people of Springfield tried to adjust to the situation. Kids played games through their windows, neighbors talked to each other from a distance. Homer tried cooking, Bart started doing homework because of boredom, and Marge made masks with funny patterns. But the toughest part for everyone was staying indoors. Some people in Springfield kept hoping things would return to normal soon, while others tried new hobbies just to stay positive during the difficult days. And through it all, the people of Springfield held on to hope, waiting for the day life would finally feel normal again. The Simpsons predicted that in 20
Waiting for the sunlight. They want to feel normal, man. These are killing me.
The Simpsons revealed something dark about Erica Kirk years ago, and it explains everything.
This is crazy, man.
In one episode, a nationally televised interview features the widow of a well-known political figure. Her posture is perfectly still. Her pale blue eyes are unnaturally bright. They stay locked on the interviewer without blinking. She smiles at the wrong moments. Her reactions don't match the questions. Viewers feel uneasy. The interviewer shifts uncomfortably. In the Simpson house, Homer squints at the screen.
Why does she look like that?
Marge leans closer.
I think we should change the channel.
Bart frowns.
That's the creepiest interview ever.
Lisa rewinds the clip and studies the same moment again. Maggie starts crying the moment the camera zooms in. In Springfield, theories spread fast. Phones light up across town as clips replay again and again. At Moe's, patrons argue over whether she's grieving or rehearsed. Empty glasses sit untouched as the debate grows louder. At the Quickie Mart, customers whisper about body doubles. Someone pauses the video, zooming in on her eyes. At City Hall, employees pause the video on a frozen frame. They stare at the still image, convinced something is off. Local radio hosts speculate late into the night. Shop windows keep the footage playing on mute. The Simpsons revealed something dark about Erica Kirk years ago.
Man, this is crazy, right? I mean, Erica Kirk is hitting it big in The Simpsons. And let's face it, how crazy was that deal when she was like, oh, I love you, Charlie. Let me kiss your hand and show you I got these purple new fingernails going. Back on the market, seemed like.
The Simpsons are said to have predicted it. In the year 2026, a deadly snowstorm will strike the United States. 7 days of ice, 7 nights of silence from January 19th to January 25th. It begins with dark clouds stretching across the sky like a warning no one can ignore. Then comes the snow. Not ordinary snow, but giant flakes, heavy and sharp, falling faster and faster until entire cities vanish beneath white. Phones stop working, batteries die in the freezing air, and people who step outside feel the cold burn their skin like fire. Even the news anchors, the ones who are supposed to stay calm, stare into the camera with wide eyes and shaking voices. Water pipes burst, internet lines snap, and skyscrapers freeze over, transforming into icy towers that pierce the sky. The world feels abandoned, silent, frozen, and they say only those who are warned can prepare. Only those who speak their names will be spared. The Simpsons predicted it. The storm is coming. January 19th to January 25th, 2026. Will you survive the week of ice? The Simpsons.
I'm not sure anybody's going to survive that week of ice. Thank you for those, Zach Macanudo. We checked out the Erica Kirk thing. I wanted to save it. Now, did America, Russia, Nazi Germany, Great Britain, Australia, Canada rig the end of World War II by faking atomic weapons, planning these islands? I want to emphasize that again. The islands that you're going to hear him mention, they're the ones they're fighting about. Oh, who really has sovereignty? That's my island. Right. Yeah, we don't know, but it's crazy. Everything is nuts nowadays, man. Check this out.
Which they rarely mention, that the West has been breaking its own rules since day one. Few cases expose that contradiction more clearly than the San Francisco Peace Treaty of 1951. Back in 1942, in the middle of the World War II, the Allied powers, United States, Britain, the Soviet Union, China, and 26 other nations signed the Declaration of the United Nations. They pledged that they were engaged in a common struggle against the savage and brutal forces seeking to subjugate the whole world. And the key was Clause 2. Each government promised not to make a separate armistice or the peace treaty with the enemies. In plain terms, that the Allies vowed never to cut a side deal with any Axis power. If fascism was defeated altogether, the peace had to be built altogether. That commitment to the collective security became the moral and legal cornerstone of the post-war order. By 1945, almost every independent state on Earth had signed on, paving the way for the creation of the United Nations. On paper, this was one of humanity's greatest achievements in the whole 20th century. But in practice, it didn't even last 10 years. In 1951, the United States convened a peace conference in San Francisco to formalize the Allied peace with Japan. 52 nations were invited, but China was not. The resulting agreement, called the Treaty of San Francisco, was signed without China and without Soviet Union. It was in essence a separate peace with Japan and a direct breach of the Allied pledge made in 1942. Moscow was invited but refused to sign the treaty because it rejected the treaty's terms.
The main takeaway here is that it was planned in 42 and Russia, China excluded. It had to be that way. A little bit more of this.
Beijing wasn't even given that choice. The US Secretary of State back then, John Foster Dulles, claimed that China was excluded because of the ongoing civil war. That excuse collapsed under the most basic legal scrutiny. In the international law, governments change, but the states do not. The states remain. A civil war does not erase a country's wartime sacrifice or its legal standing as a victorious power. And there was clear precedent. At the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, China was also internally divided. But even in such a chaotic era, supposedly governed by the law of the jungle, the victorious powers still invited the representatives from the rival Chinese factions to attend the Paris Peace Conference. And that's the difference. Abandoning that diplomatic precedent was not an accident. It served a single purpose: to keep China, any China, from shaping the post-war settlement in East Asia. Because Washington wanted to dominate the region on its own terms, letting China into the room would have threatened that strategy. So in that sense,
I have a different opinion. Let's see if I have it pulled up here. That's the channel. Here's a little bit about World War II from my perspective in a 6-hour marathon. No wonder nobody can find my stuff. Hey, did you ever see that thing? Oh no, what? The 10 minutes in the middle of the 6 hours?
Couldn't happen.
Made it clear that it was real and that it started in earnest in 1942 and were quite flippant about nuclear security. For example, in 1944,
Final years of World War II, the Allies prepared for a costly invasion of the Japanese mainland, worried about heavy casualties. The undertaking was preceded by a conventional and a firebombing campaign that left and devastated 67 cities looking like Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Tokyo. The war in Europe concluded when Germany surrendered on May 8th. So
what I'm implying there is that the other towns like Tokyo and Kobe that were firebombed, they looked exactly like the other cities because they were. Look at the dates when they do it. It was timed to be the end of Japan when Soviet Union, United States, England all said, look, Japan's going to win. We can't have this. And it was a eugenics war where they were playing worldwide risk. But at the end, they said, no, the mafia's got to do it together.
That's very much far down the road from August 6th and 9th. The Allies turned their attention to the Pacific War. The Manhattan Project had been going on based on, the uncertainty principle. And supposedly they, through compartmentalization and secret keeping, made these bombs. The order was issued in July. They're going to drop them. But it says 3 days later, a fat man was dropped on Nagasaki. That's the 6th and the 9th. Over the next 2 to 4 months, it says that people were killed by the effects of the radiation.
So those are the dates I was looking for. See how I continued in this.
Whose impact on the war was probably bigger than ours. Come on, man. It appears Bone said.
Wow. Thank you guys for listening to this. So who's this? Oh, that's that math teacher.
You machinations of men. I'm saying it's time to repent. Is God calling you to believe in his heart? Then you must confess with your mouth that he is Lord.
That sounds like something I would say. All right. Let's go back to the islands, and I'll pull up some more on that later. The guy breaking it down from the Chinese, Japanese, San Francisco Treaty. How did it lead up today? It's the same CIA pulling the strings.
The San Francisco Treaty was not an exercise in peace building. It was exactly the kind of great power deal making that the UN Declaration was supposed to prevent. With that treaty, the United States fired the first shot at the very rule-based order which it claimed to be constructing. And that is why China's reaction to the San Francisco Treaty system is more than a legal objection. It is a deeply felt grievance. The post-war order in Asia was built in part on China's 14 years of struggle against Japan. And that actually began long before most of the world called it World War II. No country fought a longer or broader war against Japan. Japanese aggression against China dated back to 1931, when Tokyo seized Manchuria, China's northeast. For 8 years before Pearl Harbor, China fought along, tying down more than 3 million Japanese troops and losing.
Did you see that one? Look what they're climbing into. That is a description of a biblical town where they let somebody down in a rope 40 cubits. And now the part here, I'm going to turn this off. There, look at what they're climbing up. That's an arch. The rubble. This wasn't, I don't think, bombed into that submission. I think it was, dug out. Look what we found. They got them all the uniforms. This is like gold.
Troops and losing tens of millions of lives. Cities from Shanghai to Wuhan were shattered. China's economic development was set back by almost a century. By 1940, as the war spread across Europe and the Pacific, China's resistance had become the bright spot in the whole Allied camp. And the United States wasn't even in the war back then. France had fallen, but China kept fighting, even after losing its capital city twice, exhausting the Japanese war machine and forcing Tokyo to open new fronts in the Southeast Asia and the Pacific with overstretched forces and limited resources.
Because it's always going to be overstrapped. People weren't knowing how to fight a war. They were changing sides, secret treaties, the brutal system of comfort women? Because that's what eugenics and Darwinism requires, that shameful act.
System of comfort women, a mass civilian massacre in China, including the 1937 Nanjing massacre. Hundreds of thousands of people dead in that city alone. And the brutal human experiments carried out by Unit 731, Japan's biological warfare unit.
That's their version of MK Ultra. All of these people did not go to jail because they said, if we don't go to jail, we'll tell you everything we learned. And the United States CIA said, deal. We'll do it. That's a deal.
The San Francisco Treaty addressed none of these crimes. It left the question of reparations and accountability unresolved deliberately.
No, hey, buddy, you're not going to sell reparations to this crowd.
That region held vast resources and heavy industry. In a matter of weeks, the Soviet Red Army destroyed the million-strong Kwantung Army of Japan.
You see, that's how World War II ended. They had a treaty where the Soviet Union wasn't going to fight Japan, but then they had to wait a month after Germany surrendered, and then a minute after that month had expired, Russia had set them up and came in and finished off the main, strongest defenses for Japan was Manchuria. That was where they had got the foothold, got the mainland, and gonna, sweep across the prairie like Genghis Khan.
Shortening the war and contributing as decisively to Japan's collapse as the atomic bombings did. But
you see how they got them surrounded here? They were all set to break through because they had a peace treaty with Russia. Yeah, man.
San Francisco Treaty again refused to clearly acknowledge this transfer. The draft text docked the issue. For Moscow, this was a betrayal serious enough to reject the treaty outright. The ambiguity left behind helped fuel decades of tension between Russia and Japan that still persists today. And Korea suffered a similar injustice. Like China, it was excluded from the San Francisco Conference on the grounds of a divided government back then. But Korea had been one of the earliest victims of Japanese imperialism. It was formally annexed in 1910 and being exploited for 35 plus years. During the World War II, countless Korean women were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese army. One might assume that a nation liberated after 3.5 decades of occupation would see its full historical territory restored. Instead, the status of Dokdo, an island clearly belonged to Korea, and reflected as such in wartime understandings and maps, was left.
Hey, wait a minute. Is this turning into that these islands are really our islands, not Korea's islands? What is this?
Trusteeship, like other Pacific territories such as Micronesia. Instead, the US came up with a bizarre formula. Japan, it argued, retained residual sovereignty over the Ryukyus, while America exercised the administrative control. On paper, the US ran the islands, but in practice, Japan was being lined up to reclaim them. That doctrine paved the way for the 1972 illegal transfer of the administrative control over Okinawa from the US back to Japan without any real say from the people of Ryukyu Kingdom. Those who had suffered under the Japanese colonization were denied the right to self-determination that other Pacific.
something weird just keeps going on in the world. And this is our world today. People lie to your face, trying to get you to be like, feel sorry for her, and maybe Rome isn't that bad because she's a Roman Catholic. Charlie Kirk was almost being Roman Catholic, and he was getting mad and fed up with this fake Jew stuff. So blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Wow, then I should blah 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 blah.
Inside Candace Owens' sadistic and dangerous world, monetizing baseless conspiracies. This is after, by the way, they changed my husband's Wikipedia and said that he was a Qatari, like he had a Qatari passport or citizenship. I don't think my husband's ever even flown over Qatar. I could be wrong.
Man, her husband is as honky as they get, man. I don't know where they're coming up with that.
I don't think I know he's never been to Qatar. I don't think he's ever flown over Qatar. And they're just making it up and then they make it trend no matter what it is. And I'm like, this is happening. It's like a psychological operation because they're trying to keep us constantly responding as
Right. And it's working because this guy, come on, man. I think his 15 minutes is almost up. What else? This is about it. She's got not much time left.
and here is what they had to say. Take a listen.
So this is straight from the charging document. It says Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a, quote, stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. And when you see how easy that rooftop access is, you start to kind of put one and one together and you realize that Robinson had a
I think it's simply if anybody, I know I have a very shy group here, but does anybody else think that that whole Australian Bondi massacre thing is fake? It's a way to grab guns, but it's right on schedule, right? It's like they have crisis actors. You gotta search around, man, because sometimes they won't want to do it. They want you to believe it. Oh man. Anyway,
You see the man in white there running up and tackling that suspected gunman. There is a struggle.
they say he doesn't know how to use the gun. Plus, this fella's son shoots this guy twice. There's cops everywhere.
And you can see he appears to wrestle what looks like a shotgun out of that man's hands. Now, the individual in white has not at this point been identified, but local leaders are hailing what they say were extraordinary acts of personal courage by people who just jumped in at the scene. It is very likely that that man saved some lives by appearing to disarm that gunman. We know that at least 29 people were taken to hospital. Among people were taken to hospital. Among them are two
I
police
think it's his
officers.
shoe.
Authorities are saying police were on the scene and engaging in a gun battle with these shooters within just minutes. Police are also saying that they found a car linked to the killed gunman, which does appear to contain improvised explosive devices. Now, the bomb squad there in Sydney is probing that vehicle. They are looking for more clues. They are looking.
There's a lot of people. I'll check my algorithm. I know some of the people that I watch. They're going to be highly skeptical. Uh-oh. Oh no. There we go. This guy here, he's going to break it down. False flags, Bondi Beach. I'm not sure. Are we see there's some pro-Trump thing? I'm probably Israel makes this guy feel unsafe. Long COVID coming back, maybe. Comfort women. They must have heard me talking to you. James Lee, bring it home.
Is it anti-Semitic to point a finger at the one settler colonial state that benefits from anti-Semitism, that justifies its existence on the proliferation of global anti-Semitism?
Something I've always been told is that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And today we're talking again about the deadly and horrific attacks perpetrated against the Jewish community yesterday in Australia on Bondi Beach.
It's a place already famous across the world, but now Bondi Beach has a new indelible legacy, the scene of a mass slaughter of Jewish people celebrating the first day of Hanukkah on Sunday.
Is this a Borat movie?
Today, some of those victims have been identified. We have Rabbi Eli Schlanger, a young 10-year-old named Matilda lost her life, along with Marika Pogany, Peter Meager, Dan Elkayam, Alexander Kleiteman, Tibor.
I didn't know that was a victim. And I'm not sure if he is, but, you know, out of due respect, I mean, if they're killing people, sometimes they do. But what does he got to say? It seems like it's one of those staged things. But sometimes they kill people. Then they kill somebody behind President Trump. President Trump when he did his fight world wrestling thing.
Weitzen, Reuven Morstein, Rabbi Yaakov Levitan, along with many others who have been injured. I wanted to start off by reading these names because I believe these kinds of tragedies should be humanized, especially because we're about to talk about it from a political context. But these are, in fact, real people who died. For what cause, we're going to get into in a second. But we must never, ever lose sight of our humanity. And I, once again, will be very clear on my position, which is that I condemn anti-Semitism, especially any justification of violence based on race. I believe no civilian should be ever taught.
I saw earlier where they said this is one of the worst tragedies since the Holocaust. And then they showed a picture of Gaza's completely leveled. And they compared that to a genocide and this to, you know, a school shooting where these people go crazy. We don't know much about the shooters yet. We know what they're like in the United States. They're on drugs and think they're the wrong sex. A lot of them.
Targeted because of their race, creed, ethnicity, nationality, any immutable trait, which is more than I think what some other people out there are willing to say. So what really happened yesterday? Was it just an act of two hateful loonies, or could something much darker be going on?
We talked earlier about the Israeli concoction of anti-Semitism, how anti-Semitism often is either faked or exploited in order to advance Israeli objectives and to justify Israel's existence as a supposed sanctuary for the Jewish people. There's a fascinating investigation taking place in Australia, and I think it will soon turn into some kind of cover-up.
That was legendary journalist Max Blumenthal, and he points us to an ongoing investigation that anti-Semitic crimes in Australia might be funded by overseas actors. He says that the Australian police are investigating whether, quote, overseas actors or individuals are paying local criminals to carry out anti-Semitic crimes in the country. Prime Minister Albanese says that anti-Semitic attacks are, quote, being perpetrated by people who don't have a particular issue, aren't motivated by ideology.
Well, that would certainly change the perspective. What else you got, James?
Zionist media apparatchik has been pretty quick to point the finger at Iran for yesterday's attack.
We're looking at an attack that was done by two men. That we already saw. There's a probability that there were additional ones, meaning, first off, it's not a lone wolf attack. This is something where they came together. They came with weapons. They probably came in a car. With the possibility of a car, you could have additional weaponry out there. You could have explosives. This could have been, let's first attack the Festival of Light, the Hanukkah festival, the Jews on the beach, and then in addition, add in additional types of weaponry, as I say, explosives of different type. So when we're talking about a heightened level, I'm assuming that right now the New South Wales Police that the Australian Prime Minister just mentioned are looking at these different men, who they were connected to, where they were, are there additional explosives?
Oh, isn't that interesting? An IDF intelligence officer going on to Fox News to claim that it is not a lone wolf attack, what happened in Australia yesterday. It was, in fact, potentially a terror cell. The Times of Israel is reporting that Israel's Mossad notified Australian intelligence about a month ago that Iranian-backed terrorists in the country were planning to carry out attacks on Jewish targets. That, my friends, is probably as close to a trust me bro source as you can get, which is
The trust me bro source. Are those count now?
string of seemingly anti-Semitic terrorist incidents were really a, quote, con job to sow chaos. They say that authorities in January made the unusual claim that none of the 12 they had arrested in relation to the spate of crimes in Australia's largest cities, Sydney and Melbourne, were driven by anti-Semitic ideology and were instead criminals for hire. And who could perhaps be hiring these guys? Well, remember I started the show with that line, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So let's take a look at some reporting from the past. This is an article from The Guardian from 2017, and they reported that an Israeli teenager was charged with making more than 2,000 hoax bomb threats to schools, Jewish centers, hospitals, and airlines in 5 different countries, alleged to have been behind 591 bomb threats against schools in Australia, Victoria police have confirmed. The 18-year-old is alleged to have robocalled schools in Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, and the Australian Capital Territory in January of 2016. This is real, undisputed reporting that Israelis are maybe potentially pulling a little bit of a Jesse Smollett, if I may. The BBC.
What? What else you got?
For any of these hoaxes based on the reporting that we've just reviewed, which maybe then prompted the need to carry out a real attack where they basically sacrifice the lives of innocent people in order to maybe manufacture consent for the Greater Israel Project. Could that be what's going on?
You know, when I was young, when I was younger than you in the mid 80s, when I first heard about the USS Liberty and things like what they're doing now, I never dreamed it would be on the YouTube or there would be a YouTube, and it's out there for. It has to be applied to the Bible, though. Go, Max.
Existence on the proliferation of global anti-Semitism and which has historically exploited the plight of Jews around the world for its own benefit.
Just to clarify, I'm not coming to any conclusions. I'm not saying I have the smoking gun here, but what I am saying is that you can sure as hell bet that there is way more to this story than they're willing to tell you. And the last thing I'll say is I don't know for sure the level of.
Well, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. I'm gonna see what's on my algorithm because there's these guys that are showing that the one guy was that had blood on his face, giving it. I was there at the shootout at the bar mitzvah, set up for global failure. That was even before. I get a kick out of these catch the cops in their lies type of things. Reaction to Rob Reiner, another Dan Bongino. I cannot believe people ever listened to him and took him serious, but I guess that Fox News is a thing.
not going to improve anyone's life. It was going to make people's lives substantially worse.
Yes.
You know, Bannon kind of sent up a warning flare about Medicaid, about the fact that a lot of MAGA is on Medicaid, and they just went ahead and killed the ACA subsidies, which now you're getting even further into MAGA voters because very often people who are really impoverished, they don't vote.
Right.
Now you're really getting into the class of people who vote, the
Right.
people who can afford health insurance and maintain it, but need those subsidies.
Right.
You're going to double their health insurance. What are people getting out of this? The torture porn of seeing.
I cannot imagine people having to have their health insurance doubled. That's crazy.
Immigrants beat up. That's it. That's all you have to offer them. You know, you gotta be pretty rich to think like that in the first.
They do get them set up. What do you got else on Candace?
How do they make long distance work? When is the engagement? Ha ha ha. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. So here's the trailer that she dropped for this.
To be joined by Cash and his beautiful girlfriend Alexis. So I just want to clarify, you're not Jewish. I'm not. You are not from Israel. No. So how did we get to, are you a Mossad agent? You know, that's a great question. Where's her ring? Just
You know, he solved that one crime in 33 hours, and he was on TV too. These guys, it's something to talk about.
Embarking on a 2024 focused book tour, which has gone swimmingly, by the way. Harris made several moves this week that many Democrats see as the beginnings of a 2028 campaign.
How do they even take these people serious? How could it have ever been, you know, Mitt Romney is going to be the, you know, the best choice, or Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump? They're the two best choices. They never had any credibility. I think that was a really good one we looked at the other day about the 9/11. It's a hoax. Things are getting crazy here. This guy is a little bit out of control. I want to check the weather. Is there anything happening still going on up there in Washington? Here we go. The original news. Doom scrolling, whatever that is, sounds like gambling. You know what? I want to show you. I've shown it a couple of times. I think this is a predictive programming. There it is. Does he predict the gambling situation?
So you're going to bribe some senators to legalize gambling?
Legalize sports gambling. You see, with all the heroes gone, legalized gambling is about the only thing that'll save the beast. You follow me, Joe? We're talking about some big bucks here. We're talking about billions. That's 9 zeros, son.
I'm not your fucking son.
Did you ever see this movie? It's kind of one of those ones that here's some cussing parts of it.
Thing is away. Make sure. I'm awake.
So anyway, he ends up punching this guy in the nose and making him go away. So actually, I was going to go until about 8 o'clock. If does anybody have any links or topics? Because I still think something might happen. That sounds interesting. 1948 imposters aren't even anti-Semitic, and in the mid 70s, the late great planet Earth. Unless you were there, it's hard to describe how popular that book was and how all of a sudden, because it was right on the tail of the Eric von Daniken and the Garden of the Gods and all of that stuff. So that's pretty interesting. And it really is so fake and obvious. The you know, the Geneva Bible, all Bibles talk about, the millennial reign and the short season because that's how I learned about it. It was strictly from it. Now, some of us, I have the veterans insurance and things like that. But you see, a lot of people, Luther, he has those herbs and things going for him now. So that's what happens. Let's give it one more run because I don't know. Have you seen the floods, the atmospheric rivers? You know what we need to do? We need to check up on the Laurel Canyon. I wonder if Eric Kirk ever went there. It's where that Jolly West and everything else was. We're looking for something new. Not too long, but something kind of recent. Because we don't want your old news. Rock essentials. No, we're looking for more along the conspiracies. Did it change music? Notorious locations? Secret photos? And if we don't get anything with this,
Sinister truth about Laurel Canyon's music scene. Nearly every major 60s rock star had military intelligence family connections. Frank Zappa's dad worked on classified weapons at Edgewood Arsenal. Jim Morrison's father was the Navy admiral who orchestrated the Gulf of Tonkin incident. The Byrds, David Crosby, came from a military dynasty. The canyon was walking distance from Lookout Mountain Lab, a secret military film studio. Zappa's log cabin became a gathering spot for musicians with the ripostate to parents. The CIA was actively monitoring the counterculture movement through Laurel Canyon. MK Ultra experiments happened at Ridgewood Ranch just minutes away. The entire peace and love movement may have been engineered social control. Most musicians there died young or mysterious deaths. Even Zappa later admitted the scene felt controlled, saying, "The whole thing was too perfect to be accidental." The Canyon's golden age of music might have been America's most successful psychological operation.
all with that CIA influence, just like everything else. LSD can be used good or bad. The music could have been used good or bad. They changed it late to the 400. Uh, Punk rock. Look at that. No, we want to hear Jolly West, not the basketball player, somebody West, who is so famous in basketball, slam dunker. Well, that's a long one.
You ever heard of Jolly West? Jolly West worked for the CIA under MK Ultra and led Subproject 43, a psychophysiological studies of hypnosis and suggestibility. Also involved in MK Ultra LSD research. This dude apparently loved LSD, but also loved studying the human psyche. He would test it on people unbeknownst to them. Would just find random people and test LSD on them.
What a cool dude.
So in 1962, Jolly West injected a 7,000-pound elephant named Tusco with 297 milligrams of LSD at the Oklahoma City Zoo.
Because he was bored?
Killed the elephant. And he also worked in the Hyatt Ashbury Free Clinic. It was a clinic where troubled people or insane people would go. Not only did Jolly study LSD and all that stuff, but he also was super heavy into studying like the occult and different types of cults. And guess who went through this clinic? Charles Manson.
Yep.
So the theory is that Jolly recruited Charles Manson in MK Ultra and was testing him, and that's what led to murder, starting this cult. A huge thing of the MK Ultra of him like figuring out how to break someone's mind was to put them through sleep deprivation mixed with LSD. They said
Break their mind. You know, that just seems crazy. Let's try this. Jack Ruby slippers. You ever hear of that guy? It's funny. What? This guy, he's got so many channels.
And Jolly West goes in there to give him an exam, right? And he says that Jack Ruby has had an acute psychotic break with reality. That's the actual quote from Jolly West. Nobody has seen that. So they asked Jolly West, when exactly did this happen? Because everybody's been talking to Ruby. So Jolly West said, this has happened, obviously, sadly, within the last 48 hours. He's now declared to be totally insane by Dr. Jolly West. And when the Warren Commission shows up, coincidentally, a few weeks later, he tells them delusionally all this stuff, Eric. And that leaves the Warren Commission to say, well, there's nothing we could do with this guy. I guess we might as well leave him here in this jail cell, which is, you know, where he starts saying there's forces in the United States government that are involved in the assassination of JFK. And Jolly West goes in there to give him an exam.
Man, oh man, oh man. Man. I used to be a fast typer, but now I'm not a fast typer. Oh, another Rothschild went down, but you know, I wanted to hear about the Charles Manson thing. Ties into Barack Obama and some of those people. Somebody got parole from the whole deal.
In the winter of 1968, a small band of hippie misfits began moving supplies from their compound on the outskirts of Los Angeles to a desolate ranch deep in Goler Canyon, and more specifically the mining camps of Barker and Myers ranches, accessible via the Goler Wash, a virtually impassable route up the mountains from the Panamint Valley down below. In
Man,
March
that's
of
weird.
1969, a gold prospector from New Mexico named Paul Crockett and his business associate Bob Berry took up residence at Barker Ranch, which they intended to use as their base of. The leader of the hippie gang, now back in Los Angeles with the rest of his followers, soon learned of the desert rat who was turning his people against him and set about taking corrective action.
What was going on? How'd this end up?
Meanwhile, law enforcement was closing in on the group, and with the assistance of Crockett, apprehended all members and detained them in a jail in nearby Independence.
Wow, that looks like a mud flood old jail. It seems like so long ago, so many rich people. Haunted Canyon.
Barbara Richardson, Ron Lanius, Roy Miller, and Binny Deverell, known to their partners and rivals in tandem as the Wonderland Gang, were occasional sneak thieves and semi-successful drug dealers in the late 1970s, early 1980s Los Angeles County. Their miniature cocaine and heroin empire was cut short by an unexplainable, unsolved murder on the 1st of July, 1981, leaving all who knew them across Laurel Canyon and Los Angeles at large, grasping for answers in a sea of evidence that drowned us all in doubt. As a hope to provide more substantial reasoning built upon observable evidence and situational analysis, this is an examination of the 4 on the floor murders and the harrowing mystery on Wonderland Avenue.
Okay, this is the Wonderland murder of John Holmes, the porn star, CIA agent. What about the Folgers? They had the money too. The heiress to that was the coffee thing. That was a big deal. Frick, big deal. Laurel Canyon outtakes. Abigail story. Go.
Welcome, ladies and but their primary.
The former professor there in the University of California system, he'll break it down, but he usually takes a long time to get to the story. Probably here.
Now, this house behind me was once owned by a young woman. Her name was Abigail Folger. Now, that name might ring a bell for you, or it might not. Now, Abigail, unfortunately, is one of those rare people who end up becoming more well-known in history based on the circumstances of their death rather than the events of their actual life. She moved here from New York City with her boyfriend, Wojciech Frykowski, and she bought the house in August of 1968. He was a Polish immigrant, a struggling screenwriter, and very new to that industry, but he was also very well connected with some very powerful friends, such as Roman Polanski. And
Hey, that's Roman Polanski, the convicted pedophile with his wife Sharon Tate, who was one of the victims.
at the time, he was learning to speak better English, being taught by Abigail. She had money because, as the name implies, yes, she was the eldest child of Peter Folger, who was, of course, the CEO and the president of the Folgers Coffee Company. And Abigail was the sole heir to that family's massive fortune. She owned this house for almost exactly 1 year. And then she and Wojciech tragically became 2 of the 7 people, plus an unborn child, who were brutally murdered over the course of 2 consecutive nights in August of 1969 by members of the Manson family. Now, before we just jump...
You know, I could try to force it to make it fit into the Obama thing, because that, what's her name, Bernadine? Bernadine Dorn, Dohrn. quote about Sharon Tate. Nope, they're not going to give it to you on YouTube, even though I've made a video about it. They're going to maybe make her say something about it. There it is. Professor Dorn. Now, the lady who basically in her living room talked Barack Obama into running for president because she's a professor now. When she was in the weather underground, she said, dig it. First, they killed those pigs. Then they ate dinner in the same room with them. They even shoved a fork into Sharon Tate's stomach. I don't think they're giving the whole thing there. Wild, man. Let's see what this quote says. It's Bernadine Dorn about the Roman Polanski thing because she was into anything but the family, monogamy. They went through it and then they got pardoned. They were on the top 10 wanted list. It's absolutely out of control. Still fighting over the same islands. Busiest intersections. So many things going on weird. The church scam, Roman Catholicism. Nobody's making a stand on what is a salvation issue. Is it just anything goes? This is what I've been talking about. This is crazy.
Developing now, a levee failure triggers evacuation in the city of Pacific. What we know about the work happening right now to fix this levee. Nearly 50 miles of Highway 2 closed because of flood damage. How long WashDOT says this closure could last. And with 2 levees failing in less than 24 hours amid historic flooding, what we know about their upkeep.
Wait, when you get an evacuation order, they're setting the table, you move. And when they say turn around, don't drown, or they'll kill you.
I would hope that we would be, but it doesn't. This rain needs to let up.
Yeah, work crews using heavy equipment are stacking giant sandbags to plug up the breach where the river has been coming through, at least it was this morning. Extra sandbags, they're being trucked in to create as much of a temporary barrier as they can and prevent any additional property damage. Now, adding to the complications, there is a dam that's upriver that they need to release the flows on because there's so much pressure building from all this rain that we're getting. They've held off for now.
That does not sound good. That does not sound good at all because there's more rain coming.
Just while these crews can get some of this work done. But at some point, they're going to have to increase the river flows by opening up that dam partially. Mary?
Joel, it looks like they're making good progress with the repairs. Any timeline on when the levee will be secure enough so that the evacuation order might be lifted?
Let's jump ahead. I don't think they're going to be coming back home anytime soon.
He was waiting for help on top of his SUV when the National Guard truck arrived to help.
By late last night, they had this all shored up, and we have seen crews back here today just keeping an eye on it. Of course, this was one point that they were worried about. This is where it failed and sent that water down into the
along with the city of Seattle. It's unclear how long they'll be deployed. The last time Task Force 1 was activated in a non-federal
to lingering flooding and that.
All right, we're going to be wrapping it up shortly, but I am going to do one more thing and see if the due dissidents or anybody's got any of these guys out there showing how the cops like to take it too far. pull people over for no reason. That would have been a good one to get into. But boy, this is an interesting algorithm tonight. United Fruit Scandal, I cover that a lot. So nothing about the cops yet. Everybody knows they're paying the pastor. That was a weird apocalypse now. Where's that coming from? Press abandons Tiananmen Square hoax. Well, that's long overdue. The last Boy Scout, false flags, whistleblowers, it's not paying off for you. This is old.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 6-year anniversary of one of the most insanely reckless acts in law enforcement history is upon us. So I decided to make a video about it to make sure you don't forget about it and also give you some updates along the way. So let's just jump right into it. At around 4 p.m. on December 5th, 2019, a man named Ronnie Jerome Hill knocked on the door of a Regent Jeweler, which is a jewelry store in Coral Gables, Florida. Ronnie was dressed up like a postal worker and he was wearing one of those old man masks that made him look like a old white guy. Now, the store wasn't really open, but the owner thought that this was a guy delivering a package from the mail, so he went and unlocked the door and just let Ronnie in. But of course, as Ronnie got into the store, he threw down the boxes he had in his hands and he revealed a silenced pistol. Ronnie was there to rob the place and he immediately started barking orders at everyone around. He even fired a shot into the ground that actually ricocheted off the ground and just barely grazed one of the workers' heads. She was like literally millimeters from being killed. Different vehicle to get into. About a mile and a half away, 27-year-old Frank Ordonez was out delivering packages for the first time on his new route. He had just completed the training for this route the day before. Everything was going pretty good for Frank's first day, and he can even be seen on some surveillance footage delivering what would be the last package he would deliver that day, or ever. Shortly after Frank dropped off that package, Ronnie can be seen entering the frame and taking over the truck. So it goes without saying that Ronnie and Lamar were not some Robin Hood heroes or citizens just trying to get by. These guys had absolutely no respect for anyone around them, and they were willing to kill anyone who got in their way. But for whatever reason, they ultimately decided not to kill Frank and took him hostage instead. Their cover was immediately blown, though, because the citizen that Frank had just delivered that package to saw the whole thing take place and immediately called 911 for 50 police cars chasing this UPS truck. Eventually, the officers were able to block off traffic, but when they tried to do a disabling maneuver, Ronnie and Lamar started shooting at them. The chase continued and lasted for approximately 20 miles before Ronnie and Lamar hit a very severely congested traffic jam full of innocent people just trying to get home from work. This is when the trail of officers from over 5 different departments converged on the truck, and what happened next was broadcast on live television.
Looks now like the driver's seat, we have police officers on the ground here. We have police officers with weapons drawn.
We have the UPS driver still in that
there
truck.
There are shots being fired. We can hear the shots being fired. You can see the
All right, that's up pretty much out of control. They could have kept, the whole keep an eye on them with the helicopter thing. Wow. Not at all like TV where they get them with the one shot. Break it down.
An absolute joke.
Several officers opened fire on that UPS truck, of course, when the chase came to an end. You saw it right here, and we wanted to know, was it necessary? And Local 10 News reporter Christina Vasquez is live with some of those answers to our questions.
The public's reaction to yesterday's shootout was swift on social media. Some users claiming the officers involved acted recklessly. Here's Miami-Dade.
I would say that we're getting programmed by the Masonic cops to accept whatever they do. We're supposedly in a free country, but they don't act like it. They want to walk right up on you no matter what and ask you for your ID. How about a short one? I don't recognize any of these guys.
What is going on today, everybody? Today we're here in Roselle, New Jersey, and we're going to be going around and doing our regular thing, stress testing the First Amendment right to record in public, seeing how the public and or the public officials...
Now, I have seen this guy. He's doing it in front of dispensaries. I can see why people, don't like it, but he still has the right to do it. And the cops still are demanding ID. Let's get to demand ID.
Doing anything. You can't turn a constitutional. This is First Amendment. Freedom of. I haven't even told you can't video the buildings. So what about the Fourth Amendment?
Please don't tell me these guys called the cops on a couple of guys taking pictures of cars.
Well,
okay.
So on the sidewalk, y'all are fine. That's all.
He was just filming on the sidewalk, but within minutes he was surrounded as if he were a criminal.
I'm asking you to provide a name and date of birth that I can verify, and we can let you go.
So they actually, just on my curious mind, they actually are thinking that maybe we're looking to rob them?
A simple conversation suddenly turned into a shocking moment, all because of a request the citizen was never required to comply with. The man was just filming on the sidewalk, but you won't believe what made two officers rush up to him immediately.
Thing.
Go ahead.
Between the two of us, I am the subject matter expert on the law, and that includes constitutional law. I have hundreds of hours of study and application.
The seemingly friendly conversation suddenly shifted when the officers began scrutinizing every little detail. Why did their suspicion spike so suddenly?
Apparently he's just out here recording the fine scenery.
Yeah. Can I get your name and badge number as well, sir?
Yeah, if you want, it's Bailey 0198.
Thank you so much for being professional.
You doing all right today?
I was just hanging around. It ain't as cold as I thought it would be.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody would, so, again.
My truck. This is your truck? Yes, sir. Are you the only one in here? He left? He left. Where'd he go? Down the street. He went down the street? Yes, sir. My friend hit the curb over here and apparently stripped a lot of tires. And,
that dude seems drunk to me, man. Let's see what else they got to advertise to us here. Nothing? Nothing with the bad cop. Stop arguing, man. This looks like a short one. It'll be the last one.
Including certain Ford of the local sheriff's department. The core issue, can a citizen legally refuse to show ID if they're not suspected of a crime? This situation highlights your First Amendment right to record and your Fourth Amendment protection from unlawful detention. Stay tuned as we analyze how this moment unfolded, and a special thanks to...
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Raise a little bit of suspicion.
It's not illegal, though, right?
It's not illegal, however, it is suspicious in nature. With it being as, what it is. So, you have a vehicle with you?
I'm not answering any questions. Like I said, I explained to him I'm a journalist gathering content for a story.
You have an ID with you?
And so he's already confirmed I'm not breaking any laws. So.
Well, we're still talking to you. We need to identify who we're talking to.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
We're trying to identify who we're talking to just because it was called out that there was a suspicious person walking around taking photographs. When the way things are right now, we at least need to identify who we're speaking to so we can make a notation that you were in the area, who you were, and what you were doing. If you're taking photos, that's fine. But we still need to find out who we're talking to.
Who I am is an investigative journalist gathering content for a story.
Okay, I need your name
I'm taking photographs.
So that's perfect.
Unless I'm being detained. Am I being detained?
It's an investigation, so right now you are being detained. Or
I am being detained?
You are being detained until we can figure out who your name is. I'm giving you a chance to give me your name. We're conducting an investigation as to what you're doing. Therefore, I'm asking you for your name.
What reasonable articulable suspicion do you have that a crime is afoot?
You're in an area taking photographs of a power plant.
He's taking photographs of a power plant of...
Jeff calmly asserts that he is an investigative journalist, filming from a public space with no weapons and no illegal activity, yet officers detain him based solely on suspicious behavior, a vague term not supported by reasonable articulable suspicion as required under Terry v. Ohio, 1968. Jeff invokes his Fourth Amendment protection against unlawful detention and challenges the officer.
Well, I would suggest, study up on this. It's going to be like, do you have to wear a mask? And, do it at your own risk, because they will take you to jail. The Freemasons are in every town. The cops are some of their last and best customers. We're not getting a fair shake because the mud flood was Armageddon. They added 1,000 years, and somehow our grandparents or even our parents were in on it. They didn't get lobotomized or sterilized. They got to breed and take us to school and learn about the globe. If God changed your heart, that's why you're here. You may have been on your knees confessing that Jesus Christ is Lord, and you want to confess with your mouth. Call somebody, tell them, and live it. You are a seed planted in soil, given talents, that after you're saved by grace, we're going to be judged. And if you were seed planted in soil and God intended and gave you talents to produce fivefold, you should. That's how we know where it says that's the least you could do. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakamain. Adios, amigos. That's how I like to say goodbye. Mostly because I like to go when I go, ciao.